Welcome to The Explainer. Look, today we're opening up a fascinating window into an era that is honestly shrouded in ancient texts, intense academic debate, and some real archaeological mystery. We are talking about the Vedic Age. This is the epoch that laid the absolute bedrock for one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations. But, separating fact from myth here requires digging deep. So let's jump right in and embark on a dynamic, evidence-based investigation into this pivotal chapter of ancient history, letting the raw data and the historical texts guide our way.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the dawn of the Vedic Age, move right into the mystery of Aryan origins, and then look at what the archaeological evidence actually tells us. After that, we'll trace their geography and expansion, and finally, we'll reconstruct daily life in early Vedic times.
All right, Section 1, the dawn of the Vedic Age, setting the timeline.
So, the foundational timeline for this era stretches from 1500 to 600 BC, and this essentially marks the beginning of India's historic period, mainly because of the compilation of the Vedas. Now, traditionally, these texts are thought to have been composed by a group known as the Aryans, but let's clarify this term right out of the gate. Aryan originally refers to a linguistic group, specifically folks speaking Indo-European languages like Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek. It is not an ethnic or racial category, and emphasizing that linguistic connection perfectly sets up the great historical mystery of their origins.
Which brings us to Section 2, the mystery of Aryan origins and the 5 major theories.
Think about it. If this group is defined by a language family stretching all the way from India to Europe, where did they originally come from? Well, historians have passionately grappled with linguistic clues scattered across continents, and it's given us 5 major theories. First up is the Central Asian theory, famously advocated by Max Muller, who found some pretty striking similarities in the plants and animals mentioned in the Iranian Avesta and the Indian Vedas. Second, we have the European theory. Sir William Jones put this forward back in 1786, pointing out how words for mother and father are nearly identical in Sanskrit, Latin, and Gothic. Crazy, right? Third is the Indian theory, arguing that the Aryans were actually indigenous to the Sapta Sindhu or other local regions. Fourth, Swami Dayanand Saraswati proposed the Tibetan theory based on Vedic references. And finally, B.G. Tilak's Arctic region theory. This is a wildly intriguing idea derived from Vedic descriptions of days and nights that lasted for 6 whole months.
Moving on to Section 3, what the archaeology tells us, busting the myth.
Okay, let's cross-reference those massive literary theories with the cold, hard physical evidence found in the dirt. There is a famous quote that acts as a huge pivot point in our investigation. Archaeology knows of no Aryans, only literature knows of Aryans. It's a powerful statement because it highlights this stark contrast between the absolute abundance of textual records we have, literally thousands of hymns in the Vedas, and the near-total silence of the physical archaeological record regarding some massive, sudden arrival of a new people. So the crucial takeaway here is that the physical evidence completely dismantles that old, dramatic alien invasion narrative. For the longest time, it was assumed that invading Aryans violently destroyed the declining Harappan civilization. But guess what? Recent excavations in places like Haryana and Jammu show zero proof of a large-scale migration or violent conquest around 1500 BC. Instead, what we actually see is the late Harappan culture and the painted gray ware cultures peacefully coexisting and overlapping. It was a gradual cultural transition, not an overnight destruction.
Let's look at Section 4, geography and expansion, tracing the movement.
Now that we've got a handle on the archaeological reality, let's track their actual geographic footprint. To do this accurately, we really need to break the era down into 2 distinct phases. The first is the early, or Rigvedic period, lasting from roughly 1500 to 1000 BC. This was the era when the oldest text, the Rig Veda, was compiled. But then something major shifts. From 1000 to 600 BC, we enter the Later Vedic Period. This is when the other 3 Vedas, the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, and the Aryanikas were composed, marking this massive leap forward in both literature and societal evolution. So what exactly caused this big shift around 1000 BC?
Well, tracking their migration pattern answers that very question. If you look at the early Vedic region, it's firmly centered around the Sapta Sindhu, or the land of the 7 rivers in the northwest. But later on, we see this huge expansion stretching eastward. Around 1000 BC, the introduction of iron technology changed absolutely everything. Armed with iron axes to clear out dense forests and iron plows to till the hard soil, they were able to expand eastward from that early northwestern area right down into the incredibly fertile Gangetic plains of the later Vedic region. It was a total game changer.
Which leads us to Section 5, Life in Early Vedic Times. using data as a time machine. That physical expansion completely transformed their society. So let's use the specific quantitative data hidden inside the Rig Veda to reconstruct exactly how these people lived. First off, we can map their world through the environment they revered. The Rig Veda actually mentions over 25 rivers. By mapping these ancient river names to their modern counterparts, we can pinpoint their exact geographical world. For example, the revered Sindhu is the modern Indus. The Purushini is the Ravi in Punjab. The Kuba is the Kabul River stretching into modern-day Afghanistan, and the Drishvavathi is the Ghaggar in Rajasthan. Their entire world was essentially defined by these life-giving, yet frequently course-changing waterways.
Now, check out how these specific numbers definitively prove the nature of their daily life. In the hymns of the Rig Veda, the Sindhu River is mentioned an impressive 73 times. But look at the animals. Cows are mentioned 176 times, and horses? They are mentioned a staggering 215 times. This linguistic data proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were a highly mobile pastoral society. Their entire existence, wealth, and culture were centered completely around their livestock.
And there's a very practical reason for that. Because they were situated in a northwestern region with really low rainfall, and because they lacked iron tools during this early phase, taking up large-scale cultivation was practically impossible. So their economy relied heavily on cattle rearing just to survive. Agriculture was strictly secondary, mostly just growing yava, which is modern barley, for a bare subsistence. On top of that, they had a highly self-sufficient, limited economy. We see absolutely no records of grand trade and commerce, just a simple barter system to exchange basic necessities.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we can clearly see the incredible trajectory of the Vedic Age. They started out as a highly mobile, pastoral people living among the northwestern rivers, totally reliant on their cattle and horses. But with the spark of iron technology, they pushed east, cleared the vast plains, and evolved into settled agriculturalists, creating the deeply advanced literature of the Upanishads along the way. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. How did that monumental shift from a mobile, pastoral society to settled, iron-wielding agriculturalists set the absolute foundation for the complex, diverse, and philosophically rich modern Indian subcontinent we know today? Thank you so much for exploring the evidence with me. Keep asking questions and keep learning.